gang, gang. You might have some cool fans, but mine are the best. We've been through it all, went to war when duty called. Never left a man behind, we move as one is super strong. I don't want followers, that implies I'm the leader. I'm not the captain, I just gave them something they can believe in. I hold the lamp in the darkness, but they're the light that I needed to see the road that we walk in between the angels and demons. And my fans have my back. Hate us if your feelings don't like facts. And my fans will fight back. Beat you with the keyboard you've been using to write back. I guess we need each other like both sides of the battery. We the army, we the homies, we the gang, we the cavalry. We're brothers and sisters, we hold it down like we gravity. Can't nobody break the bond that made us all family.
Me and my fans, we don't care what anybody say. Middle fingers to whoever in the way, man. Me and my fans, we gon' be together to the grave. It's a game till forever and a day, man. Me and my fans, we don't even trip in the hate. We the I don't give a fuck in our veins, man. Me and my fans,
we the hangover gang. Gang, 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 gang.
Oklahoma weather can dish out some of the worst punishment in the world. Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Tuttle. But now you can fight back by installing Class 4 impact-resistant shingles from Ferguson Roof Systems. These shingles can withstand large hail, heavy rain, and hurricane-force winds, all while keeping your home safe and dry. And the best part? This upgrade is completely free for many homeowners. So call today to start reaping the benefits these Class 4 shingles bring, including a discount on home insurance. Only at FergusonRoofSystems.com.
Hey there, meteorologist Tuttle. It is about at 9:34 here on your Wednesday night. We're going to talk about the forecast here for the next 24 hours. It's going to be a little on the potent side. Want to let you guys know I have now signed up and I'm officially testing for the first time tonight on Rumble. So if you're looking for a YouTube alternative to watch the weather, I do have Rumble now set up and I'm broadcasting live there. So you can look for me. I think there you can just type in my name, Tuttle. You can probably type in weather. You can probably look at their live broadcast. I'm not sure how all that's going to work. This is the first time, so just me getting it up and running. Just making sure that was going to happen. So give everybody another couple of minutes here to get in. And then we're getting into the details, what you can expect here over the next 24 hours, as we do have some pretty nasty storms and stuff to deal with. And I don't know about you, but I'm not ready for that. So it is what it is, though. All right, so tell you what, let's get on with it. Oh, by the way, on Facebook, let me put the link up. So if you want to get a direct notification when I do go live on your Facebook Instant Messenger, you can click this link that I'm posting as we speak, and then you can opt in for that. You'll have to opt in. In other words, there's a link on there to watch now and then manage messages. You'll have to hit that manage messages every, I don't know, a few times that you watch. Maybe, I don't know what the number cutoff is. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 5. But that way you'll keep getting notified. And if it just stops for whatever reason, you'll have to re-click that link. And that way you don't miss a broadcast. All right, so I think we're all up and running. Guys on Twitter checking in, good to see you. YouTube as well. So if you guys again missed my announcement here just a moment ago, if you're late to the party, I am broadcasting live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and now Rumble. So Rumble has brought on live streaming, so I'm now decided to jump in on that. And we'll see how that goes. Eventually, Gab TV is going to be going live, so once that happens, I'll try to go there too. Try to reach all of you. You guys are all scattered like cats, man. Trying to find on all these multiple social media platforms makes my job so much more difficult than it needs to be, but that's okay. All right, let's get on with it, shall we? First things first, temperatures, not bad. Are we done with winter? Man, I hope so. 68 degrees. Oh, nice. I've been kind of waiting for this, so we'll see if this is going to continue here in your extended outlook. But for right now, we're going to focus on the threat of severe weather. So, storm system is coming our way, and right now the National Weather Service highlights the southern area of Oklahoma here, south of Oklahoma City, down toward Ardmore and North Texas for the severe weather risk, up to golf ball size hail, 60-mile-per-hour winds, and a low threat for tornado. However, will this threat change? We're looking at some data to see if that's going to need to be adjusted. In the eastern Oklahoma, same idea. Threat mainly down here for the southern part of the state. but also just some marginal thunderstorms expected here across the central and northern parts of eastern Oklahoma. Storm Prediction Center kind of breaks all this down across the entire country, keeps the tornado threat down across Louisiana, but we're going to talk about something here across Oklahoma, believe it or not. There's the wind threat here over south central Oklahoma, and there's the hail threat, which continues through Dallas on into eastern Texas. So it's a little bit of a bigger impact when it comes to severe weather. So we're looking at the upper levels of the atmosphere. Take a look at the jet stream pattern. It shows us the upper level storm system. This is it with all the bright colors. This little circular feature you see is the center of the upper level low. And so we're going to have the lift and the instability that comes along with that all in this area here as we head into tomorrow afternoon and evening. And that will kind of move on by slowly overnight, Thursday night into Friday morning, and then it's out of here. So it's, it's not like a winter storm that hangs around for a couple of days. These things are in and out. When we try to time things, we can look at the brighter colors here on this map. This is a 700 millibar level. When we get to around the 0Z hour, which is now at 7 o'clock in the evening, thanks to our springing forward, which also makes the data come in late. The only good thing about the standard time was that the weather data comes in at starting around 8:30. Now it comes in around 9:30. So I have to look at it live on the fly with you when it comes in. So that's, it is what it is. But regardless, there's a lot of strong lift right here showing up here into western parts of North Texas and southwest Oklahoma, and this is by 7 o'clock. So that should be the lift we need to get those showers and storms going. Kind of dies out here in the south in the evening, but gets strong. It keeps going up here in central Oklahoma, and then moves into northeast Oklahoma by midnight, and then it's out of here. So that's kind of the timing on how that should work out. So how does it break down when we're looking at some of the ingredients for tornadoes, for example? Well, this is the significant tornado parameter, and it does show you where the brighter colors are, where the best ingredients with the winds, in other words, the shear in the atmosphere, and the instability. Right now, that is focused just south of the Oklahoma City metro, pretty much down I-35 and points to the west a bit, on into North Texas, just north and west of Dallas, a little hot spot there in North Texas. Now you can see that peaks during the early evening hours. It shifts to the east and then weakens. So we're in a very small window here of that type of a threat. Then we got to get more detailed. Okay, so where is the best opportunity for something like that to happen? Well, let's take a look at the dew point map. So bone dry, by the way. These are dew point values in the 30s. I mean, today was ideal. Now tomorrow you're going to see moisture race in all day long. That's what this green color you see on the map is. Once we get into the 5 and 6 o'clock hour, you see how things really start to wind up with more of these greens showing up here. And there's a little surface low that develops out here in the southwest Oklahoma. That's kind of on the leading edge of that. Remember that 700 millibar lift with all the bright reds that kind of just went down like this? Well, that's along the dry line. So it's the dry punch of air here, whereas you have the moisture coming in out ahead of it here. So this is what we call the dry line. And usually you can donate it a brown color. I'm just going to use yellow there. But regardless, this will be the focus for those storms to go because they like to form along the dry line, especially along the bulge onto where the surface low is. So yes, these are all meteorological terms, believe it or not. All right, let's go to 7 o'clock. So more deeper moisture is working its way now from North Texas to the Red River, and that's the key here. We're lucky because a lot of this deeper moisture, which is, by the way, these dew point values here are right around 60 degrees. Here, they're into the mid-50s. Big difference, believe it or not, between mid-50 dew points and 60 dew points when it comes to tornadogenesis. But regardless, these are a little too late to the party, which is great. We want too late to the party when it comes to deeper moisture. But it is going to cross over the Red River here into this favored area of southern Oklahoma during the mid part of the evening from around 7 to 8 to 9 when there's still a little window there for some monkey business. Now as we head into, let's go to 7 to 8 o'clock. What we have here, kind of two areas of low pressure develops at the surface because of the way the upper system is stacked. So we have a meso-low here, and then we have, looks like a little bit of a meso-low trying to form here. So it's a secondary area of instability that comes in into Oklahoma City, which can mean some elevated supercell type thunderstorms producing some hail. All right, so Oklahoma City, guess what? I do believe we're going to have a little hail and wind. I do not think we'll see a tornado threat here, at least at the data I'm looking at now. We'll see if anything changes in tomorrow's data, but right now, the better juice is down here in the south on the secondary meso-low, and that is probably where the better ingredients and the better conditions are for a tornado type development down there. So what can we do? We can look at a forecast sounding, for example, in that area, and we can see what the atmosphere looks like. And the shear is not perfect for tornadic type storms. It's a little ugly, but it'll get the job done, because most of the shear that we care about when it comes to tornadoes is in the lowest, say about 10,000 feet. All right, so this is where it matters most, and where it matters most, the winds are out of a southeasterly direction because of the surface low in that region, and then they back out to a southwest and west direction. And we have very minimal cap at all for this event for that area, and Cape Valley's up around 1,500 or so. So the forecast sounding does call for tornado potential, and potential for a significant tornado of an EF2 in strength or possibly higher. So this is our first threat for tornadoes confined down here in the southern Oklahoma. So probably sweet spot, maybe like around Duncan, down to the Red River, kind of in that area due south. This would be east of Lawton, kind of west of I-35. Seems to be the sweet spot for the 7 to 9 o'clock hour. Again, here in Oklahoma City, we're not quite as unstable, so that's a difference there. And our shear is just slightly different. So our shear is a lot more linear out of the south through many levels of the atmosphere. So you don't have that full turning. We don't have that going around like a staircase. That's good. It limits the tornado threat. You notice here in the sounding it says marginal risk of a tornado. So it's not completely zero, and with the low top supercell, crazier things can happen, but my betting odds right now are down to the south. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's take a look when you combine the moisture and the shear. Remember, we looked at a forecast sounding. This is what it looks like on a flat plane. And what you want to look for is where you have the bigger triangles on the map. So the bigger triangles right here, this is actually right around Lawton at 7, down here along the Red River, here. So this is the sweet spot. And if you look at just the Cape values, up around 1,500 joules. So this is all in the ballpark of when you would typically see conditions favorable for developing tornado. Let's see, let's go into the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock hour. Now you can see things are quieting down here in Oklahoma City because we'll already have the storms moving through. But then down south, that now shifts along the I-35 corridor. And as we head into the 11 o'clock hour, everything's starting to kind of at this point weaken, and the shear isn't quite as conducive. So by midnight, I really think the threat's pretty much over for any potential tornado. So we have about a 6-hour window from 6 to midnight, from right along I-44 through Lawton to the east of 35, and maybe just a little past, and that's it. So it's a very small quadrant. So we're mainly focused in this little region here for potential tornadoes for tomorrow. So you can see that's very small, but we are going to have other storms, and we'll take a look at that next. That will extend northward here into central Oklahoma. So this particular model, and each model is going to be a little different on how they develop things. So this is where it develops some supercell storms just west of Lawton. And it does have a little bit we call a helicity track with it, which indicates rotation, probably some large hail with it, and yes, potentially a tornado. So it's right up near the I-44 corridor, right around Lawton. So that's the beginning stages between that 6 and 7 o'clock hour. And then from that point forward, it starts to move east. Now, you do notice that there are some storms that move here into Oklahoma City, and there's a little bit of a helicity track there. Again, I believe that's probably mainly going to be for some hail. Now, in this particular case, because the shear is more linear in central Oklahoma, it tries to line the storm out, what we call a line echo wave pattern. So what it means is like a mini squall line. Now, what that does, that limits any potential for supercellular type tornadoes, but you can sometimes get those little QLCS tornadoes on the leading edge, little baby spinners that happen in that area. So in this region here, kind of as that develops, but usually more of a straight line wind event when that happens as well. Then you have to kind of watch the tail end to see if anything happens there where it's more favorable for storms. So let me go back and step this through time again. So there is 10 o'clock, for example. So the storms will move through Oklahoma City tomorrow evening. And then we head into the 11 o'clock hour, and there's midnight moving east of I-35. There's 1 o'clock in the morning, so there were some helicity tracks that crossed right over that area. Then after that point, you see how the storms vaporize. Here's 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're pretty much dying out, moving off to the east. So that's kind of how things go. So we're looking really, again, from 6 to midnight, in especially southern Oklahoma. Now, when we look at the helicity tracks, which is you take a look at those storms and the models, say, okay, what kind of updrafts are we talking about? They're going to spin, they're going to be enough to produce some hail, some damaging winds, some tornadoes, and they say, yes, they will. And they're again confined down here around the Lawton area, then points to the east around Duncan, Velma, maybe up a little farther north than there, but otherwise through Paoli, Pauls Valley, maybe up toward Ada, then back down south and west. So that's a little sweet spot there, but keep in mind the models will not get this perfect because this could easily have these tracks here, and here, and here, and here. It's just the take home is where do you see them at all? That's kind of the take home. You really want to focus on the mesoscale features, like we talked about the little mini surface low, and how the wind's back in that area, and that's why I kind of favored this zone down here personally. This is tonight's data, obviously. Tomorrow morning we're going to have a little bit better data. The models will see how well the moisture is returning, and then we'll take a look at the shear and all that kind of stuff. So I will plan to do a lunchtime live around 11:45. I will be indisposed tomorrow evening. I already have previous plans made that I cannot get out of, so I won't be able to cover them live tomorrow evening. So you have to use my weather app, AT's Weather to Go, but at least you know what's coming and the time. Temperatures 73, another warm day for Thursday. Obviously the cold front comes in with the storm systems. It will cool us down for Friday. Then the weekend looks good, and next week actually pretty uneventful when it comes to temperatures. We are trying to get things warmer at night. It's a slow process. Remember, our last freeze goes into April, first, second week of April. I know you guys always get itchy with those plants because Home Depot puts them out as soon as they can. And you go buy them, you plant them, they die, and you go buy another round. You repeat the same process every year. It's called insanity when you can't break the cycle. But anyway, so Monday there'll be some rain that moves through, some heavy rain at that. And down to, I think, southeastern Oklahoma, especially on into Texas. So some severe weather is expected down across the Lone Star State, Louisiana, maybe southern Arkansas, as that system isn't quite geared to us very well. All right, so that was the latest data for tonight. So if you're late and you're like, break it down for me, give me a 30-second recap. By the way, let me check something here real quick. So, by the way, I see 5 of you watched on Rumble. That's good. I just had to check to make sure it was working. So I have not advertised Rumble at all. This was a what they call a silent debut because I wasn't sure it was going to work because I hadn't set this up before. So yeah, you can, if you like, start watching me on Rumble. If you don't like YouTube, if you guys on Facebook that refuse to sign up to my YouTube channel in protest, fine, whatever. I got Rumble for you. So you can sign up, find me there, and subscribe. Like several of you have already subscribed, so that's good. And you can get your live videos that way as well. Let's see. Okay, so your recap. We have about a 6-hour window, severe weather, for tomorrow, 6 p.m. to midnight, bounded by I-44 right in the Lawton area to I-35, roughly in that time frame. There will be some supercell type storms, which are the kinds that rotate, which means they'll produce some hail, little wind, and potential probably for a couple of tornadoes down mainly across, if you had to draw a north-south line, it would probably be right around Duncan area. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to do this, and I'll show you that here in a second. North, though, in Oklahoma City, I really can't rule out like a very weak, small tornado if the storm still stays somewhat supercellular. But the shear we looked at shows it should become more linear and more of a squall line type appearance. When that happens, you get more of a leading edge line issue versus like a typical updraft from a supercell. So you get those QLCS baby tornadoes. Can't rule out one or two of those, but honestly, I think most of them are going to be down south with the way the shear was looking. Okay, so speaking of south, so let me do this for you. Because I know some of you guys are new here. Some of you's like, listen, I'm not from around these parts. You're saying some town names. That's not helping me out, Aaron. All right, well, let's get down to business. Okay, so if I were to draw the sweet spot of where I think the best ingredients are for potential tornadoes, it would probably be about like this. Okay, so in this bounded box, this goes all the way down the Red River. So you see the main towns: Rush Springs, Marlow, Duncan, Comanche, Tatum's, Loco, Lindsay, Pauls Valley, Springer, includes Ardmore, Walters, Lawton, Apache. You're on the north fringe of it. That's where I think the best ingredients are for any type of tornado activity. That goes down south to Waurika, Ryan, Ardmore, Marietta, Leon, and then now we're in Wichita Falls. South from there, southeast toward Bowie, Valley View, Sanger, Gainesville, Alvord, Decatur, and probably as far south as maybe Denton. I think that's about it. So it's a small area, but that looks like that's going to be where things are going to go. Now, north of there to, say, Chickasha, any potential supercells that do make it in here can produce some hail. And then once they get kind of in this region here of the metro, they're supposed to go linear, which means they should line out less of a hail, more of maybe some pockets of damaging wind, and then still, one of those QLCS type baby tornadoes. We'll see. I'm not overly excited about it. It's the first event of the year, but it's a weak signal. Like I said, the stronger signals down south, but that's probably your best sweet spot. And I didn't really talk much about southeast Oklahoma because honestly I think once the storms get right along Ada here, this north-south line on 377, I think once they get here, they get here from here, they just die out like fast. So anything that's going to happen tornadic wise or very strong wise is going to happen in this little quadrant here from I-35 to 377. So there you go. So I've broken it down for you as best I can. Timing, location, magnitude, all that kind of stuff. Again, I won't be able to go live tomorrow evening, so make sure you use my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. It will alert you before tornado even develops. It'll give you plenty of time to seek shelter. It gives you about an extra 15 to 18 minutes in most of the research for it to before a warning even comes out. All right, that's before the official National Weather Service warning. You're like, well, how does it know? How does it do that? Well, it uses a proprietary formula, but it's like a basket of indices that it watches for, including current radar trends, and then knowing what we know in the science, it then predicts that this storm will produce a tornado because it's got all these other ingredients, and it'll give you the exact path because it's based off your GPS location. So when you load the app, make sure you have it set to run in the background, set to always, use your location services, including GPS, so you can get the exact specific warning, because it does not warn an entire county. It's not old school like old apps are. This is very specific. It's right to your house. So if you get the warning, you're going to make sure you be in your shelters. Again, this is called AT's Weather to Go, Apple, Google Play. So when you do get the warning, you're going to see a BTI number on it. That's basically the tornado index. All right. So if it is in, let's say, a 1, 2, or 3, it just means that the storm is rotating. All right. It just means to watch it. If that storm goes to a 4, 5, or 6, I'd go ahead and start getting into the shelter. Because in marginal events, a 4, 5, and 6 can produce a tornado. When we get into our stronger events, with really strong signals and a lot of good instability and everything else is in there, the ingredients are much greater, the magnitude's greater. In those situations, which is typically late March through the end of May, you get a 7, 8, 9, 10, hit the deck. It's a guaranteed tornado coming. So that's kind of how you can read it. The other thing is, let's say you're watching it and it's a 1, right? And then all of a sudden the BTI goes to a 3. Then that's going to a 5. Well, that's ramping up. So when it ramps up, that's another indicator you might want to hit the deck, because that's probably going to produce a tornado. So there's a couple of ways to use that. But yeah, so make sure you have that for your severe weather preparations for your spring. Works all year, but definitely this time of the year. I scroll at the bottom of this every time I do a broadcast, so it's grilled in your head so that you always see it and you know it. You've got it memorized. It's always the center part of your home, structure, business, whatever. Lowest level, away from all outside walls and windows. You don't want to get hit by flying debris. Nighttime, make sure you've got some shoes by your bed. The biggest injuries that occur at night, or even actually anytime after a tornado moves through, is usually because of footwear. Because you don't have any, right? And you're walking on bare feet, and there's nails, exposed nails, and that kind of stuff. So make sure you get adequate footwear. And as far as protection for the family and the kids, sporting goods, the whole pads, helmets, everything, whatever you got, because your goal is just surround yourself and them away from any debris that's going to come through the house. All right, that's what ends up doing a lot of the physical injuries to you. So a neat little thing that most don't know, and really, it wasn't really until recent research we kind of figured this out, but you've always wondered how one house right next to another is completely untouched and the other one's just leveled, right? Or you've ever been a case where half your house is leveled and the other house, there's like little figurines that haven't moved an inch. And you're like, how in the world is this possible? Okay, so the bottom line of that is when you actually see the tornado, which is the cone all the way to the ground, which you visually see was called the cone. Inside that cone are multiple little vortices. Think of like little baby tornadoes that rotate around within that. Little suction vortices, like an octopus arms, right? So you can't see them usually. Now, sometimes storm chasers will catch them because they're right close and visibility's good, and you can make out some things at certain times in the cycle of a tornado. But obviously, if you're in the house seeking shelter, you're not going to see any of this stuff. But that is what happens, and that is how your home can still stay standing in one area and then where it's not or the next door, because you can be within this outside configuration of the tornado itself, right? You have the winds doing this. It's almost like this quasi-stable environment, which is really weird to say when you're in the middle of a tornado. You know, think of almost like the eye of a hurricane, you know, even though it's not that, but I'm trying to get your mind to think of calm, even though it's not calm at all, but try to think of it as calm. And then within that, all of a sudden you get this little finger that just goes bam, and that's it. Just rotates through and it's gone. That is what does the damage. That is what rips stuff up. And it's very small, very compact. And those little vortices can sometimes have winds within them that are, 200 plus miles per hour. Whereas the field itself, where you are within that tornado, may only have winds around 100, or something like that. So anyway, that's kind of some of the physics that happen within inside that, which causes those crazy outcomes that you see a lot of times. But anyway, so that's kind of what we've seen over the last probably a decade, and a lot of that's been from better modeling and then visual from just the crazy amount of storm chasing video from people getting so close that we used to never get back in the day. Most people would view a tornado from a couple miles away where it's nice and safe. Now, unless you're shaking hands with it, you got your arm out there, you're not close enough. So at least there was some good in the research world of the crazies that are getting that close to get that kind of information so that we can understand them more. So it's a pretty neat little phenomenon, very small. Another thing is, if you're new here to Oklahoma and you're like, listen, I don't know what's up about these tornadoes. I hear they're everywhere, and the truth is they're not everywhere. We average about 55 a year in the state. They're like needles in a haystack. They're very, very small. They're very tiny. You can live your whole life here and never see one, unless you turn on the television, because you're going to see them on TV. That's about the only way. You don't want to see one, obviously, but if you do, the majority are actually weak. So 70% or so are in the EF 0 to EF 1. Those are easily survivable with any amount of adequate shelter. The only one's going to have trouble with that is if you live in a mobile home and an EF 1 hits you. That's going to turn the home over and you might get injured in that. So those are never a good place to ride out a tornado in. So always have to have a place to go if you are in one of those. But any other solid structure, you're good. Here we have very strict building codes. We have anchor bolts from the frame of the housing to the slab. Some parts of the country, they do not have that. They've got houses built on cinder blocks. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Tornado will rip that stuff like it's nothing. Just blow it right off. There's no structural integrity. Here we do. So it's a lot harder for those weaker tornadoes to do that much damage. So you really take a strong one. So an EF4 or F5. Now, what's the good news about those? It only makes up about 3% probability of all tornadoes. So that means the other 97% are under that category. So that's good news, obviously. You don't want the big ones. Now, we do get a big one here. I think our average is about once every 10 years across state to get a 4 or a 5. And when they do go through, they do some damage. You can still survive them, though, with adequate shelter. And I do mean adequate in timing and a plan. Obviously, there's going to be some cases where not everybody does, and that is unfortunate. But in most cases, you can still survive those. But you just got to do a lot of planning And a little prayer doesn't hurt either. And just kind of just make sure you're ready. That's all. But just know that you're going to see a lot of hype and drama around here for tornado season because it's ratings. Ratings get people excited. It's a fear factor. Get you to watch. Get the advertising revenue. You know how it works. It works that way in any entity. Fear is a motivator for whatever. It's for action, for sales, you name it. So this is no different. So a lot of people come to me and watch AT's weather live. A lot of them watch both. They'll flip over to one, hear the dramatics, and then flip over to me and say, this is never going to produce a tornado. You got one guy that just said, get ready any second, you're all doomed, and then I'll come on there and say, this thing's falling apart, it's done. So obviously, that's a huge discrepancy, right? So what I do is I break down the science for everything, but we get into the dirty details of what's actually happening so that it removes all guesswork, and it makes it very easy to see what's happening and what will happen next. And so that's what I do. I'm a radar meteorologist by trade. So I just show you all data, and we walk you through it, and very calmly, and that way you don't lose your marbles, and you can make sure your family is safe. So, and that's the goal. That's what I do. So during the severe weather season, I go live for these type of broadcasts. But when it comes to severe weather, I just cover when tornadoes are expected. Hail and wind, unless it's a really high magnitude storm, I'll cover those. You know, you've got winds of 100 miles an hour, for example, or 80 plus that can do some damage, like a small tornado, but it's over a larger area. So I've done some of those and some of those huge hailstorms. But usually because of time permitting and safety issues, I just kind of focus on the tornado aspect. But again, tomorrow evening I'll be incapacitated, so I won't be able to cover them live for you. But that's what my weather app can do, can help you out. And make sure you get a NOAA weather radio, especially if you're new here. So a NOAA weather radio, you get one that's programmable. You can click on the description of this live broadcast, and at the bottom you're going to see a link to my Amazon store, and I show you which NOAA weather radio to pick out. It's the best one that they sell on there. As a matter of fact, I ordered one I ordered that one on was it yesterday? So it'll come here tomorrow. You're like, well, how come you don't have a weather radio? I was sitting there telling Jody, he's like, I do not have a weather radio. I've been doing this for how long? Probably because I'm always in tune with what the weather's doing. So obviously I'm not going to be taken by surprise. But I say that, and then sure enough, that'll be my luck, and then I'll need it. But what it does is it's a stopgap. So when you're trying to get weather information, when it comes to this kind of stuff, you need to have backups and what we call redundancy. So weather app obviously is good. But where's the failure point of a weather app? Even mine, AT's Weather To Go. Well, you put your phone on D&D. Well, you're screwed. All right. You lose your Wi-Fi. You're hosed. You lose your cell connection. You're hosed. So there's failures in that out of your control, and then there's just some of those dummy moments where you turn the volume all the way down. So you do have those moments. Well, you've got the NOAA weather radio. You don't touch it. It just sits there, does nothing, makes no noise for 11 months and 28 days of the year. And then all of a sudden, one or two of those days, it goes off. Well, if it goes off, you better be, hitting your shelters at that point in time. And at that point, do your action first, and then pull me in. Like, pull up your phone, your tablet, and turn me on so you can see if it's going to be hitting, your house. Because those are going to be a little bit bigger on the warning area, so they won't be specific to your specific house like my app would. It would be maybe to your city. All right, so if you live in Edmond, well, Edmond's a big city. Same thing for Oklahoma City. So that's, you'll hear the sirens. That's a third way to get information. They're not designed to be heard indoors. They're designed to be heard outdoors. And they're really kind of used as you've been living under a rock? Well, in case you have, there's a tornado coming or a storm that looks like it might. So we're going to issue this siren so anyone outdoors can seek to shelter. So that's kind of how the intent is for those. So there you go. So there's your apps, NOAA weather radio, sirens, watch my streaming live coverage through your phone. You can put me up on your television, smart TV. You can mirror cast it to your TV from your device. Same thing there. It's all in 1080p. And then I hate to say it, but yeah, if we're in a pinch, you can watch the TV guys because you're going to get some good information out of that, but you're also going to get a lot of stuff. You're going to have to learn how to let go in one ear and out the other to keep your sanity. But in amidst all that nonsense, there will be some good information. And then, what I've found out was over time doing this for as long as I have is you guys really, and I understand it because there's, how else you going to know, right? But you have no clue as to who is a real meteorologist and who isn't. You have no clue who's just a real weather fanatic and who actually has education for it. You have no clue who we used to call in the business a rip and read forecaster, which means they would take the printout from the National Weather Service and then go regurgitate it on television. Doesn't take much of a brain to do that, but there's a lot of that still in existence, both on the internet nowadays and even on television, some of the news stations. So you're not going to know who is the, quote, expert, because the newscast and everybody else on the internet will all say they're experts. Well, if that's the case, I'm an expert in Hawaiian Punch, because I just drank some. That makes me an expert. So you're going to get a lot of that out there. I'm having some fun at this, but you're really not going to know who's trustworthy and who's blowing smoke up your butt and who's making a mountain out of a molehill. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So my advice to you is you're going to have to weed through it all, and you're going to have to use some critical thinking, which is shunned in this day and age. You're not allowed to think for yourself, apparently. But you're going to have to do that. And what you're going to watch for, obviously, is over-dramatic emphasis of gloom and doom. All right? And everything's gloom and doom. So immediately, if you're in that level, sign off. And then move on to the next. A lot of times, and this is where unfortunately you won't know, and I've seen this a lot, but someone will be pointing to a storm and saying there is the tornado. In reality, it's not even there. They're looking at bad data, or they're misinterpreting the data, or it's in the other part of the storm. And I do this. I'm just like, I can't believe that just happened, right? But you'll never know that, And so they'll all be talking about this one area of town getting hit, and then nothing's happening, right? And there's nothing you can do about it, because you're not going to know if they're right or wrong. You're just going to hear the freak out, and you're going to seek shelter. It's the state of the affairs that we're in. There's a guy on YouTube, ton of followers, right? He pretends to be a meteorologist, and he goes nuts with everything. It's a show. It's a performance. He doesn't have a clue what he's talking about, but he can fake it like you'd never believe. And remember, there are con artists in all aspects of life. If you can con your way through anything and be successful, hey, more power to you. But what I'm saying is, you won't know you're getting conned. And so it's a frustrating part for me as a scientist to see that, but there's nothing I can do about it. So all I can do is do me. All I can do is walk you through things as best I can and explain to you the science behind it. And hopefully over time, you'll pick it up. There's a difference between a walkthrough of science and education versus just fear, gloom, and doom. That's the only way you're going to be able to separate the chaff, right? So hopefully you'll see that, and then you'll tell your friends and family, which is basically how this whole thing started. This was all word of mouth, friends and family, and it still does. And I get people from out of state that come in and they ask, who should I watch? And they're all being told, check out AT's weather, because they get a taste of the other, and they've never seen that before, and they're losing their mind. So they don't want that, obviously, and I get it. I wouldn't want that either. So anyway, so that's a little side tangent of that. Somehow I got on, but I just want to bring that up to you because a lot of people don't know what all happens behind the scenes in this whole weather business. So that's just a little bit there for you. That's all I can tell you. It's hard to find out, who to watch, and you get a point to where you watch somebody. Why? Because you like them. Well, that's great. You can like them all day long, but if they're not educated in what they're telling you and they're putting your life in danger, well, that's a problem. But again, that's up to you. If you're happy with that outcome, who am I to argue with you? So you may hate me. You may think I'm the worst thing since a nuclear bomb that's come along. But if I give really good weather information that saves your life, you watch me anyway. That's fine. Whatever. I don't care. So my goal is to save lives and teach people about the weather. So that's why I'm here. So this is not my full-time job. This is what I do on the side for you guys. I've been doing it since, broadcast-wise, since 2014. As far as social media goes, since 2010, started that first Facebook page. I was doing weather on Facebook. No one was doing weather on Facebook. It hadn't been heard of. Facebook's thing where you put pictures and post funny whatever back then in those days. And so I just started doing weather, and that's how the whole following started. I got a TV, retired, and went to work for the federal government. So that's what I've been doing forever. And matter of fact, I've now been working for the federal government longer than I have in the television world. Did that for 12 years, and now I'm at year 16, I think, for the feds on weather radar. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and then this social media thing just keeps going. So I just figure I'll just keep going with it, and so I just keep expanding and just adding a little bit to it each year. Try to add something new and different. Like I said, so right now we're on Rumble. To this live, we'll be on Gab TV at some point here once they get that thing set up. And then, of course, we're still doing, for the time being, I'm still doing Twitter. I just don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing Twitter, because Twitter does nothing for me. So you guys know on Twitter. and you got to sign up to one of the other platforms, I think, to get live video. Because Twitter doesn't do anything for the creators. They're so lame. They will suck you dry, but they give nothing back in return. At least Facebook gives back some, and YouTube gives back some, and Rumble gives back some, apparently. We'll see. But Twitter gives you nothing. So I got no love for Twitter. It's like my junk platform. If it was gone tomorrow, I wouldn't care. So no offense to the Twitter lovers, but hey, that's the way it is in the content creator world. There's no love there. I mean, they don't love the content creators. They care less. So it's weird, man. Everybody else needs the content creators to survive. So I don't know. They just have a different philosophy over there, I guess, or they haven't gotten around to it, one or the other. But we'll see what happens. There's a lot of these other platforms are cropping up, and there's too many. Honestly, I can't keep up with all of them. I can only go where I can go live, right? So I'm limited by that. Plus, I'm also limited by bandwidth. So what happens is, you have to understand, I have to broadcast everything from my home office here to you immediately, because the information I'm providing is time sensitive. So it can't be filtered through other third party or cloud networks. That's going to slow things down, right? So I have to do some workarounds so that make sure that I can give you exactly what you need, so you can get it as soon as I say it. It goes through, hits you on your other end, especially when you're talking about tornadoes, etc. So some of these other platforms, those guys can get away with having a 2-minute buffer, right? And it's fine because they're just talking. And well, obviously I couldn't do that. So I'm limited on how many platforms I can go on live at once through my bandwidth that I have here. And as long as I can shove as many down that bandwidth, I will. But right now I think 4, probably 5 is going to max it out. So that's where I am. All right. Well, listen, that's it for me. It's 10:15. Got some things to do. Jeff, did I miss the weather? Oh my gosh, you're funny. You're like really, really late. So yeah, if you're really, really late and you missed everything, you just caught the side discussion. We talked about the threat of a couple of tornadoes down across southern Oklahoma, on the Red River, and a few counties north and a couple counties south, bounded by roughly I-35 and 44. So right just west of Lawton, just east of 35, between 6 and midnight. Hail, wind, a couple tornadoes, and then here in Oklahoma City Metro during that time frame, we'll see those storms move through once they get going. So probably after 7:30 or 8, southwest side of town. And then those might be low top supercell type deals with a little bit of hail, maybe a little wind, but the shear is trying to say they're going to line out to more of a mini squall line. So when that usually happens, you have less hail, more pockets of damaging wind, and then any supercellular type tornado threat is gone. But sometimes you can get a leading edge QLCS type tornado. So we'll see. That's a very, very tiny, low probability. The better ingredients are down south. And that would be roughly from a line from around, I think we said Paul's Valley to, I forgot what we said, probably north. Where did I say? Hold on. I said Apache, that's what I said. From like Paul's Valley, due west through Rush Springs and between Apache and Lawton, kind of in that east to west line, and then south. That's the better area for tornadoes for tomorrow if they were to happen. Otherwise, wind and some hail. Okay, so that's it for me. Thanks you guys for tuning in, and thanks for joining me. And I will be doing this again live tomorrow, right around 11:45 for you, for your lunchtime live to see how things are going, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, have a great night. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon. Take care.